My name is Kirk Kalvar. I'm a senior software engineer and principal at KAL Technologies, which is my company. So, how did we get here? How many of you use Docker? Pretty cool. I used Docker myself for quite a while, and then I finally realized that Docker by itself, containers are cool on your laptop, but what do you want to do with that stuff? And I finally figured out that you need to orchestrate to really do anything with it in production. So I started looking at orchestration engines. I spent an enormous amount of time with Swarm. Anybody a Swarm user here? Was not impressed. And another thing is I wanted a production-grade environment, something that you could do DevOps with. Whatever the programmers could use, you would be using it in production. I think that's one of the key components of DevOps. Well, so something that could scale and something that the developers could use without a lot of drama. So I didn't want them developing on their laptops and then going out into production and everything was different. So I wanted to have the same environment across the board. So anyways, that's what I was looking for. And I wanted to be able to do it pretty quickly too. I didn't want to spend a lot of time. So I finally ran into Kubernetes, which I was really impressed. The first time I installed it, it actually worked. I was able to deploy an application and service and load balancer. It was COPS, I believe, on AWS. But there were some issues with it, especially the networking overlay stuff. I'm not going to get into details about that, but if you tried to log into a container, because of the network overlay, it wasn't having any luck. So one of the nice advantages of Kubernetes is it's a leading platform. 63% of all the Kubernetes workloads are on AWS. And this was like 2017. So there's a lot of people running Kubernetes on AWS. So why AWS EKS? Okay, this is their managed service. It's already integrated with many of their services like the Elastic Load Balancer, IAM for authentication, VPCs, and Amazon gives you a chance to run different versions of it. I think currently it's 1.12, and you can migrate most of your standard applications across over there without too much trouble. And it's on demand, which I like. Because what you can do is once you start it up, you can just delete it and you're done. So you don't have to run it if you're not using it. Saving money. Anybody about saving money? And one of the things about cloud is that's how you save money. It's on-demand stuff. So what do you need to do? You need to have an AWS account, a root account. You need an EC2 instance that you can run AWS client tools. You need some cluster resources, a service role, VPC, and 3 worker nodes. And about 15 minutes to get everything up and running. So this is probably the most important slide here. If you look at the top part there, Amazon EKS is only this part right here, just the master nodes. You're responsible for setting up all these worker nodes. So that's a little bit of work on your part. So what I've tried to do is make this a lot easier for everybody. This was pretty straightforward. They did give us some CloudFormation scripts for this, but it was still a lot of work, a lot of hand churning. And this is how the kube control talks to the cluster. It has an endpoint that's exposed, and it actually talks to the master nodes and does load balancing and stuff like that. So it's pretty slick. So in order to do this, create the EKS cluster with CloudFormation, create an EC2 instance, configure kube control on your E2 instance to talk to the cluster, deploy your web app, and do the dashboard if you want to do that, which is kind of nice. I won't do that tonight unless we got some more time. So for this demo, I'm actually typically have this up and running because of time constraints. I'm going to actually do that while we're here tonight. I'm actually going to use the CloudFormation script, and while that's building, we're going to go look at some of those artifacts that I've created to help make this a little bit easier. Okay. Just bear with me here. And I'll go ahead and get this started. Is anybody familiar with the concept of a root stack? Anybody know what a root stack is?
What did you say?
A root stack?
No.
Let's get this going here. So a root stack, basically you can have multiple CloudFormation scripts and you can tie them all together. They use that they call that a root stack.
So are you running multiple scripts then for collaboration?
Multiple CloudFormation scripts. And I'll explain a little bit more about that.
Is it called something else as well?
What's that again?
Is it called something else?
What?
No.
Are you familiar with CloudFormation scripts?
Yes.
Okay. They're just multiple CloudFormation scripts put together. They call that a root stack. I'll show you how that works here. This is the root stack running right here. See that? It's actually going to fire off a bunch of other scripts, like a batch file or something like that. Okay, away she goes. And once that's finished, we'll go ahead and we'll show you the different ones. And then I need to create an EC2 instance. Where's my EC2 stuff? Cut and paste all over. Come on.
To set up 3 or so, whatever many you're setting up, how much might be like your typical account cost on a monthly basis to set up what you're setting
I'm
up?
pretty frugal about this stuff. I put up a cluster and tear it down. I usually run 3 nodes. I'm like 45 cents.
A month for it? Really?
Yeah, it's like, if you're on demand and you're not using it and you tear it down, you don't pay hardly anything. So it's really, really cheap.
So the 3 EC2 instances you need to stand up, they could be tiny little T3 micros or something?
They sure can be.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, if I look at this CloudFormation script, when you come to the size of the instance, there's a list, all the 2 instance sizes that you want. You can actually figure out what you want.
So you don't have to, I thought you have to pay a base monthly for Amazon EKS or not?
No, no.
Really?
Oh, it's all on demand. That's how they do stuff. Yeah. If you have your cluster running and you tear it down, why would they charge you for it? So what I do when I'm doing development, stand the cluster up, do my work, tear it down, and go away. Okay, while this is running, as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff going on in here. See the EKS role, VPC, the cluster. Some of these scripts were actually developed by Amazon. So what I did is, to make things easier for us, is I created a CloudFormation script for the role and for the cluster itself, and then used the root stack to tie everything together. It was a little bit of work, but now I just run the root stack, put the parameters in, and I'm done. I don't have to do any of that manually. Before I had to create the role manually, had to create the EKS cluster manually. Now it's all automated. And here's the root cluster, EKS role. Here's the VPC, the cluster, and then there's going to be some nodes that are created, the cluster nodes. That's another script that Amazon provided. Okay. So let's go over to, this is actually the project. This is in GitHub, so anything that you see tonight is there. You can go ahead and just check it out. There's the slides and everything are there. The Docker file for creating the Docker instance that I use is right there. And I left a container in my Docker Hub account. You can just use that script that I have and just pull your Docker. You don't even have to create one. You can just get going with it. So here's the CloudFormation scripts. VPC, role, cluster. I think there's another one up. I think it's something I'm not missing. I should have checked them all in. Then we have some scripts that we run on the EC2 instance, because there was a lot of manual configuration to get kube control to talk to the cluster. So what I did is I took a bash script and put all the stuff that I needed to do manually in that script. So now I do configure kube control, and it does all that stuff automatically, which is really nice. And same thing for the dashboard. When I launch the dashboard, I say configure the dashboard, and it installs all the packages, creates a configuration file, and shows me everything I need to do. So it's pretty nice.
To get set up in Eclipse, you just pasted the domain name in for the project.
Domain name?
I mean the AWS-EKS Cluster quick start URL.
I didn't see that. I'm not sure I drew that.
How did you start the Explorer or that to get those scripts?
These scripts here?
Yeah.
How did I do what now?
How'd you get access to them?
Are they on GitHub?
Yeah, it's GitHub.
Oh, you're just
Yeah,
pulling
this
the
is that. Remember
GitHub.
the project I told you that's in GitHub?
Okay, you're just pulling the
That's
GitHub
one.
down.
It's just a local copy of it.
Oh, it's a local
Yeah,
copy. Okay.
Yeah, and all I'm doing is showing you the cloud. Like, here's the cloud init script. Anybody know what cloud init is? How you can rerun those? Well, all the stuff that you have to install on that EC2 instance, I put in a cloud init script. So it's all done for you automatically, which is nice. So when you start your EC2 instance, you just tell it where that cloud init, and it puts out the kube control, the special authenticator for IAM and all that stuff. It puts it all, pulls this GitHub that I have here, pulls that GitHub down onto the EC2 instance, so all the development artifacts are there. So there's a lot going on under the cover, and I encourage you to go out and take a look at it. It's pretty good stuff. So let's go find out how that EC2, oh, it's good. And let's go ahead and log into it. Come on. It's just logging into the EC2 instance we created. Let's go back and check on the CloudFormation script and see how it's done. Okay, right now it's still creating the cluster. So, go ahead, sir. You had a question?
No.
Okay. So let's look at that cloud init script. Here it is.
Yeah.
If you look at, can you guys see that at all?
Pretty small.
Can you see it at all? Not very big? Well, that's okay. You guys can look at this code later. But there's a lot of simple stuff like putting Docker on there. It's all been automated, which is really, really nice. So here's the other thing. Once you've run this cloud init script and you install all the software, all you need to do is make an image of it and store that image locally for your account. And the next time you put an instance up, you don't need to run that cloud init script. Just grab that image, start it up, and all the software's already there. Which is what we'll see right here.
NAMI.
What's that again?
NAMI or AMI?
AMI. Here's my AMI. See that kube control version 1? That's a pre-built image. So next time I start this, I don't need to do the cloud init. I just go in there and start it up, and everything's there.
But you've loaded the cloud init on it.
Yeah, it's already been, once you've created it, you just make an image of it. There's a way for you to use the UI to create an image of it, and it stores it out there for you. So you don't have to rerun that stuff again. And there's some stupid things you do, like making sure that you can talk to the cloud. So you need to set your AWS configure. See, it's already set. So Anyways, let's go back over to the cloud formation script, see how it's still working on the cluster. It takes about 15 minutes for the cluster to spin up. It's pretty slow. The nice thing about this is once you have a cloud formation script, you just put in the parameters and run it, and it just starts up. You can go get a cup of coffee, go get some pizza or whatever. You're good to go. So you set up your EC2 instance, you set up your cloud formation script, you're ready to do cluster work, which is nice.
Then it set up your VPC and VPC.
Yes.
It did all that for you.
Yes. Now remember what I told you, Amazon provided the VPC script, all I did was package it together, which was nice. Yeah, so this is very easy. It's probably the easiest way I've seen to put a cluster together.
So EC2 instance is not inside that VPC though?
What's that?
The EC2 instance you created?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So what is that VPC for? For the master node?
For the worker nodes too. It sets up a security group for the worker nodes.
Okay, so the one you set up already, that's the kube control?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I wish this was going a little faster. Yeah, it's actually kind of slow. So let's see if we can go back here and look at some of them. Okay, so let's look at some of the scripts that I did. I'm not sure if you can see that. So what I've done is I've used the AWS CLI. I've gone out there and used it to query some parameters from the cloud, put it into a variable, and then actually use a simple sed script. Anybody ever use sed streaming to make modifications? It's a slick, stupid, ugly little trick. It's pretty good. So what I did is I actually take the input of the configuration file, I have my parameters, do a sed or a placement, write it out, copy it to the correct location, and I'm done. So all the manual editing that you normally need to do, you don't need to do. Now, one caveat is this script is not really flexible. It uses the names that I predefined, hard-coded. So it works really good for my stuff, but if you want to use it and you change names, you may have to modify these scripts to make it flexible enough for you. Here's the dashboard one. It puts in all the dashboard packages, applies all the properties that it needs, gets the token that it needs to sign on, starts the reverse proxy, and then gives you the address that you need to set up locally to get to the dashboard. So that's a lot of stuff being done real easily. So the big thing I did was put all the cloud formation scripts together, cloud in it, and then put some simple scripts together. And this is how easy it is to do. And here's see the node group now? It's creating the node group. And we're almost done. It should be showing up pretty quick. So any questions?
Can we see the root stack confirmation?
Yes, you sure can. I think this is it right here. There we go, right there. So it's kind of weird. When you have a cloud formation script, you have like parameters that you have input to. Well, when you do a root stack, you have to redefine those same parameters at the highest level, and then you actually reference them when you launch that. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. See, here's all the high-level parameters, but when you get down to the actual, remember the instance that you were asking about? Here's all the instances that you have available. That's a bunch. You can put more in there.
Lock it down for cost.
Yeah, you can. You can. The default is the smallest one, so if you don't touch it, you'll get the smallest one. Let me see if I can find one of these. Here it is right here. See that right there? See that reference service role? I define that up on top. So once I've done that, it'll take that and put it into the existing CloudFormation script and takes my parameter. So what I do is on the very root stack, I defined all the parameters, you plug them in, and it just distributes when you ask for the reference to it. So it takes a little bit of work, but I think it's pretty nice.
So you put it in a JSON file?
Oh, what?
Did it put it, the parameters in a JSON file?
Did it put in a JSON file?
Yeah, is that what you did in there?
It's a JSON file, yeah.
Right, so did you put all the parameters?
Yeah,
input
oh,
file in
yeah.
there?
I can talk JSON. I mean, it's not, you know. I think other people use, what's the other tag?
Yeah.
YAML. You know, I kind of like JSON. It's probably a little more work, but yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, so would an application, you mentioned Docker earlier, so would an application be taking a Docker and an application inside of a Docker container?
You need a Docker.
And how do you load it? And you're loading it onto the Kubernetes
That's
worker
correct.
nodes, right?
Yes.
And then you're deploying it there and letting that application that you built in the Docker container run.
That's correct.
Is that, you have an example, you have a Docker file in there?
I sure do. Here's the
How is
Docker
it
file.
deployed to the
Yeah, that's how you
workers?
build a Docker file. You push that to a registry. This one's actually, there's ECR. You can use that one internally for AWS. I actually have this in Docker Hub. It's a simple little Flask application that takes the container IP and displays it. But I use that for debugging a lot because I need a simple container just to make sure the architecture's working properly. So I just park it out there all the time, and when I need to reference it, I just pull it in.
And you go to the web page and it just displays the ID?
The container IP.
The container
Yeah.
IP.
Here's the YAML for the web service. See the container right here, this image? That's Docker.
So,
Docker.
so then you're not moving the container, you're creating the container from scratch?
No. Well, initially I did. Once I create that, I put it in the registry, and anybody can go out and get it. It's public access.
What registry?
Docker Hub. Yeah.
Okay.
You can put, I like ECR, but it's not as sophisticated as Docker Hub. So Docker Hub, I like Docker Hub. They've got a lot more tools. ECR is a real bare bone registry, but you could definitely use that here if you wanted to. Like I said, I always use this container a lot for doing debug services, so I just left it out there. Everybody's getting tired. Let me get on with this.
And then how would you use the Kubernetes dashboard to look at the load of, say, you did have an intensive application or a web application, putting some load on the Docker that's in Kubernetes?
If you can get that from the dashboard, you can use it.
If you can, well, that's what I'm asking. How do you then use AWS EKS and look at the statistics? Where's the dashboard to see what's running?
Yeah.
To see your Docker application running?
It's a standard Kubernetes dashboard. Whatever you can get from that dashboard is available to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you would be able to see your Docker image running,
Yes.
right?
The containers running, the pods and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead, sir. So remember that script I was telling you about? Remember that one right there? We're ready to go.
What did that do?
It did all that. Remember that configuration that we talked about? Taking all those parameters and then redo it, and then using sed to put those into the configuration files, and then putting them in the .kube directory. That's what that just did. So all that manual effort that you normally do is automatically done.
Now we're back on the cube control.
This is the E2 instance, yeah. Yeah, I think they call that best station host. Maybe some people are familiar with that. I call them a console. That's probably confusing. I'm just used to doing that. Old Solaris habit, I guess. All right, so what do we got to do next here? Oh, let's go ahead and got to make sure the nodes are up. And the nodes are ready to go. So we can actually launch an application. That's it. This cluster is up and running, guys. 3 nodes. The cloud configuration script, you can have as many nodes as you want. There's no limit on that. But 3 is the default. And for developers, that's probably sufficient. Here's all the steps. There's all the steps you need to do this. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy this service. Ready to go? And it's creating it. Now, the nice thing about ECR is since it's local to AWS, you can load your containers initially the first time pretty quickly. When you go to a hub, you got to go over the internet, so it's a little bit slower. And these clusters do not come up. These applications are a little slow coming up. Like the load balancers still take a little while to get going. There we go. So let's find out what our service has got. That's our load balancer right there. And it does take a little while.
Is the load balancer the standard load balancer that's
It's
deployed with the KAS?
It's a Amazon load
Yeah, but I
balancer.
mean, it's plumbing a load balancer that's already part of AKS?
Yes, yes.
So on your other console screen, you deployed the web app. There are 3 IP addresses. How do you know which IP address your web app is running on?
Kubernetes will put one container on each of the nodes.
Oh, it will put it.
Yeah. I think they call
Oh.
that a round robin, I'm not sure, but you can actually change that feature if you want.
Oh, so you're saying by default, you have kind of a triple cluster of it. You have a 3-way high availability
Yes.
by default. Oh, I didn't know that.
And actually, if you look at this, every one of those nodes is in a different zone.
Oh,
Yeah, which is nice. So you have some redundancy. So see
I
the
thought-
status
yeah, I
here of
thought-
out of service? Yeah, let me.
but you can choose to put it only on one or two.
No, I don't believe, well, you might be able to configure it to do that. I think the default behavior is to load balance across the.
Oh, okay,
zone.
that's why you have the load balancer. That's what I was trying to understand. Okay.
So they're in service now? There you go. So, if we do that, we should get a different answer every time. So now it's load balancing. So would you like to see the dashboard?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, just to show you how easy it is to do. Believe me, I spent a lot of time installing dashboards. This is sweet. Dashboard's installed and ready to go. So you do have to, there is something you need to do. You have to make a, hold on a second here. Bear with me while I find out where I'm at here. Anybody ever used Signal before?
Use what?
Signal?
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. Okay. All right. So we'll just take this URL. And the token. Here's the token. I output the token for you so you don't even have to go look for it.
Hmm.
dashboard's up and running. So, believe me, the instructions that AWS gave you to install the dashboard didn't work. So what I did is I got it to work, and then I captured that in a bash script, and I made sure that I applied just those packages, and then did all the other little stuff, so you just cut and paste, and away you go. So here's all your pods and stuff like that. So what's really nice is, as a developer, if you need to have a cluster up and running so you can go do something, you're not going to spend a lot of time. You can actually do real work, which is nice. So it was a long time to get to this point. So.
What does EKS actually look like when you go there on AWS console?
It doesn't really show a lot.
Yeah, it's just like one page.
Yeah.
If you,
And that's
yeah,
why when
everything else is done via, the QCDL.
Yeah. So
It's just-
the script that I had to create for the root stack was pretty basically easy. I just had to put it together. That's it right there. That's your cluster.
yeah, it's just one page and
Yeah.
a few links.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't know.
So typically what I do when I create stuff on AWS, I use the UI exclusively. I go through like 500 or 600 or 700 times or whatever. And then I go, I don't need to do this, this is getting repetitive. And then start trying to automate it, come up with CloudFormation scripts, bash scripts,
Or Terraform.
Terraform. And in fact, that's what I'm saying. The only reason I go with bash is because I used to do it a ton of times. And it's just my lowest common denominator. But you could use Terraform or any of those other configuration tools. So that's it.
Nice.
If you like terminal view, you can use a project called K9S and have your dashboard from your console. It may not do everything that dashboard does from the administration standpoint, but for developers, I'm a backend engineer. That's a great thing, I'm not launching any, web browser, new tabs. You have thousands of those already, right? You're in your console, boom, K9S, you connect to your whatever kubeconfig you have, to your cluster in your environment, see your, applications running, services, you can describe, you can tailor log there, you bail out of there and, proceed.
So, conclusions. Unfortunately, they do have a new tool called EKS Control, which AWS came out to actually generate the nodes. I have not used that. I like CloudFormation. Because of the root stack, I get all the parameters there visually. I get the VPC IP addresses, and I just like it. It's easier for me to use. So, cons, unfortunately, configuring AWS EKS is still a lot of manual stuff, but I think right now we've shown that with a little bit of automation, you can really simplify this stuff. And it's actually pretty fast. Once you get used to this, you could probably come in, start up a cluster, go get a cup of coffee. When you came back, you could go to work, which is pretty nice. Yeah. So again, we created CloudFormation EC2 scripts to speed up the process. They're supposed to have Fargate. Has anybody heard of Fargate?
Sure.
They have it for ECS. They had it on their roadmap in 2017 for EKS, which Azure has it, and Google Cloud's got it. I mean, when you set up a cluster in those, they give you the nodes. You don't have to do that. These guys have not done that yet. So I'm not sure what the holdup is on that. It's still supposed to be on the roadmap, and we haven't seen it yet. Pros, Kubernetes masters across availability zones. I don't think anybody else is doing that with AWS, which is really nice because you have a fault-tolerant cluster. And your developers are using the exact same stuff you would be in production. That's nice. So that's DevOps. Pretty simple to put together, and it's on demand, which is nice. You just go in there, once you start the CloudFormation script, to delete it, you just delete it, and that cluster's gone. So.
And so to get other Docker applications loaded, you just are basically running another CloudFormation script that pulls a Docker image down from the Docker Hub.
No, that would be the YAML file for your application. That's a Kubernetes file.
So how do you
Yeah.
run that? How do you, yeah, what, that's what I'm saying, what's the process
I
of
can
putting
show you
another
which
Docker?
one I'm using, and you can. Where's my YAML file? See that YAML file there? See that image?
Right.
That tells me to go get that image off Docker Hub.
Oh, that
So
does
you
it
can
too.
put whatever you want in there, but that's the one I'm using.
So it's not a Docker Compose file, right?
No, it is not a Docker Compose file.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
Kubernetes version.
Yes, it does basically the same thing.
Okay.
And I got away from Docker Compose as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, because Kubernetes is kind of the gold standard these days, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could spend time on other things, but I think this is pretty good.
Then how do you execute the YAML script?
Oh, that apply,
The kubectl apply.
kubectl
Oh, okay,
apply,
this is
and
apply
then you
command.
give it that YAML file, and if you look at that YAML file,
Oh, I
it tells
see.
you, yeah, it tells you how many containers you want.
Oh,
If
okay.
you want a load balancer, see down here? See the spec type? That's for the
Right.
load balancer, it gives you all the ports. So this is a complete application, it's telling you, I'm gonna have 3 containers, they're gonna be load balanced externally. Get that image from here, here's the ports, 3 replicas, remember 3 replicas?
Okay, then that whole script is gonna go ahead and create the pods and everything.
It's gonna create the
workers.
pod,
Okay,
it's
that-
gonna create the service and expose it,
Okay.
yeah.
Question for you.
Sir.
How does service mesh fit into all this?
Oh, good question. Service mesh is pretty important stuff.
Mhm.
We're not doing that here. I'm not gonna try to answer that question, but definitely service mesh is something I'm working on. Yeah. Definitely. In fact, if you have a cluster, if you have an orchestration cluster, you're probably gonna be using a service mesh. You're probably gonna be using X-ray, because you're gonna wanna trace that stuff. So there's still a lot of work to do. If you have persistent storage that you wanna have in your cluster, you're gonna have to configure that. I've already done that with Amazon EFS, but that's another talk. So it's their elastic NFS file system,
Yeah.
which is nice. But containers are designed to what? Go away and die. So if there's anything persisting in that container, it's gone. So really, if you want to have persistence in your application, you have to provide that. So.
Or just run it outside a container.
Oh.
Which is
And,
fine, like databases, you can run it in Kubernetes, but you don't have to,
Yeah.
right? You can have it, managed or, run it yourself. Like manage your state outside, especially if it's a lot of state. I mean, like terabytes, data. Usually it's better off, outside.
Amazon has a service mesh.
Yeah, we've got service mesh.
Yeah,
App
but
mesh
you
or
know
something.
what? You can run it on stuff outside the container. It doesn't have to be in a Kubernetes. You can run other applications with it, which is kind of cool. So I don't know much about that, but you can look at that too. So he's dead right about that. You don't have to run there are people running databases inside these Kubernetes. I mean, they're probably, I don't, your mileage may vary on that, I don't know. So I'm not sure I would want to do that, but what's to say that you can't put the database outside the Kubernetes? And some people, CI/CD pipelines, well, I've actually worked on CI/CD pipelines for Kubernetes, and it's all done in AWS, and then feeds into the cluster. Well, CloudBees puts the whole CI/CD pipeline right inside the cluster.
Yeah.
And I'm
I saw
like,
that.
so you really got to think about, do I really want it in the cluster, or do I want it outside the cluster? So that's a big
Yeah, because
question.
it looks like they deploy it inside the cluster, in Cloud Lead, yeah.
They do, and I'm like, if your cluster goes away, you better have persistence there someplace, and that's the whole key for that. You want to run your CI/CD pipeline, you got to have things on the outside of the cluster that can support it, so.
For the load balancer, was it only defined in that, the YAML file, or did you have to set it up in the
The
cloud
YAML
formation?
file,
And then it just knew how to start up its own load balancer?
that's correct.
Okay.
It does. It's AWS, I'm not sure how they've done that, but it's an external load balancer. Now, you can do ingress with the cluster, which is load balancing within the cluster, or outside the cluster. So
Yeah.
when you're doing clustering work, you're gonna have to really pay attention to where you want things to be put.
Yeah, usually in sophisticated setup, you will be doing a lot of both.
Yep.
So something that you don't want to expose to the outside world, that would be your internal cluster kind of box, load balancing, where you developers or SREs will be, getting access to your services that are spread across pods. That's very convenient, right? But you don't want to expose that to anybody outside, so you're not gonna be using AWS load balancer there.
But those services would still be on the same worker nodes? They just want to be accessible from the outside?
Hey, if you don't wanna know where they are, you just wanna access them, right? You just give them a nice name, service one, whatever, on, stage, whatever, cluster, and boom, you have it, you put it in charts, Helm or directly, and there you go. You have your cluster level load balancer for that particular service. So you don't, as a developer or SRE, you don't really need to know where it's actually running.
Right.
You just, do like some port forwarding or whatever, even to your local machine, and
Also,
do
just
testing. Yeah,
install Helm.
yeah, that's, I wanted to
So if you want to
mention.
do that, that script's out there.
Yeah,
So
so-
the clusters, you really got to build the cluster the way you want it. Because it comes, it'll do things for you, but if you want service mesh, you want tracing, you want whatever, you're going to have to build your CI/CD pipeline, you're going to have to do that yourself. So, oh, and the last thing to tell you, and this is for AWS, yeah, you need to delete those resources out of the cluster before you delete the cluster or it'll hang. So whatever you create in the cluster, you need to back out before you take that cluster down, because it will not let you unless you clean that cluster out. Just basic cleanup stuff.
So, then if you were storing data, you'd have an S3 bucket and you'd write it out to a bucket?
Or EFS, persistent storage. Now, I don't know, I've worked with the EFS provisioner, so I know that works. I was working on an S3 one too, but I haven't done anything with that. All right, thank you guys. Let me see if here's some references here. So, and this is on GitHub. Everything that you've seen, all the scripts, it's all out there for you, just slides. Somebody was asking about slides.
Slide decks out on GitHub too?
You bet, sir.
Okay,
And
great.
you're
So I don't
more than
need
happy
take
to
pictures.
just take whatever you want out of there.
Thank you.
It's open source stuff,
Awesome, thanks.
yeah. Yeah, you know what an MIT license is?
So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to start putting that on my stuff, just for, for liability issues. It's not on there now, but it just, you know what it is. I mean, I think that's a smart move. It's sold as is, no suitability for production and stuff like that. Anyways, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. So if anyone, there's plenty of pizza, go grab some pizza.